Good evening. Hi, I'm Dr. Russell Robinson coming to you from my home office. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to Elements of Speech 1250 from NCCU, sections 1 and 2. We are now talking primarily about your informative speech topic. Before I go there, I want to also take a brief moment to, again, beg for forgiveness. I've been somewhat negligent in getting things back to you, and I apologize for that. We have had some things come up externally and even departmentally that have really played into my workload that I really was not anticipating. I'm doing my best to get that back to you, but I want to assure you, first of all, that those of you who stuck with us throughout the duration of the course this time, we're going to do everything we can do to make sure that you guys get through. I want to make sure that you also understand that we don't want you to feel anxious or nervous in regards to deadlines. That's something we don't want you to do. So anything that's been on my side of the fence, I'm going to do everything I can do to correct that for you, because I don't want you to be penalized by external things. Just so that you know, some of the things that I've had to do over the course of this semester not only are dealing with this one class, but I have another class that I deal with, which is face-to-face. On top of that, I also am, for the lack of a better term, I am the chair of two committees, chair of one committee and co-chair of another. The African American Literary Symposium, I'm the co-chair of that. I'm also the chair of a search committee, and I had no idea that these things would take so much time. So it's something I have to think about on my side of the fence, but there's no way that I want you to feel penalized for that, so I apologize to you for that, and trust me, I'm going to be as liberal with the grading on the demonstration speeches as possible. And again, that's something that I had not really anticipated. Chalk it up to learning on my side of the fence. So we'll do what we can do on that part. Again, so that everyone knows off the bat, our final speech will be the informative speech. And because it is the final speech, I'm going to actually count it double. Our idea, what we intended to do, was to have a total of 4 speeches. But I've realized after the second speech that some of the instructions somewhere down the line got lost in translation. I think that it's better that we concentrate really on quality of 3 speeches as opposed to trying to do 4. So I think it's to everyone's advantage that I count the informative speech twice, and so you'll kind of understand that there's a lot of time and effort that's going into this. We're starting now in November to have this thing due, turned in, packaged up right around the time of finals. So again, that's what I'm trying to do to make sure that everyone gets through this as smoothly as possible and to make sure that we all have a good learning experience along the way. So what I want to do right now is I want to go to a quick brief PowerPoint presentation that I've created that's going to kind of outline where we are right now in the course and what we're going to do to make sure that everybody gets to where they need to be, so by the time we finish, everyone has all the things they need. So as you can tell here, I have, in a nutshell, your informative speech guide. I'm going to try to minimize me for a little bit, and I'll also make tutorials available for you along the way to help you in some areas of getting this done. So right now, as you see, we have the informative speech topic. Let me get this out of the way. Click to add subtitle. There's no need for a subtitle. I'm now going to go into some quick deadlines that we've got. Off the bat, November 15th, we have the annotated bibliography as well as your sentence outlines. They are due on that day. Again, we've done the outlines, but I also have a tutorial that will help you as far as the informative speech outline, and I'll make that available for you. Please feel free to go to the go to the YouTube channel, and you can watch that, and you'll get a step-by-step guide in regards to how to successfully navigate this particular assignment. Also, November 22nd, that is when your PowerPoint presentations are due. And December 1st, your final presentations are due. Now again, I'm going to count the final presentations twice, so that way everything kind of balances itself out. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the speech requirements that we've got. We need to have a minimum of 6 people in your audience, as you can see. Also, your time limit. You are to have a speech that is no less than 6 minutes, no more than 8. I want to make sure you understand that. On top of that, we have to have this speech done in business professional dress. We've talked about that before, but we'll go into more detail with it for this assignment. Men, you are to wear a shirt, tie, and a jacket. Women, business suit. So if you have questions about that, please feel free to contact me. I'll share with you a women's professional business attire guide, as well as for the men too. All right, so now that we've talked about that, I also want to now go into the content requirements. Now, I have here that we have an annotated bibliography. notice that what we have here. You must have a minimum of 2 peer-reviewed journal, let me say that again, peer-reviewed journal sources. If I can type today, Journal. On top of that, we want you to have 2 news sources. They can come from the New York Times, they can come from CNN, they can come from a newspaper of record. And by a newspaper of record, it needs to be a nationally recognized newspaper, or it needs to be a major network. Al Jazeera is one. You could also think about CNN. You could think about MSNBC. You could think about ABC, NBC, CBS, even Fox News. Now, what I need you to also understand here is that no web sources are allowed with the exception of a .gov. And from that .gov, you'll understand that I need you to have a statistical data set. Let me also make sure I go back into that. We need to have 1 statistical data set. That means you need to give me a graph, or at least give me some information that you can translate into a graph. Okay? You may also use edited books or books that are topic specific. Okay, but again, no web sources are allowed. That means no .coms. You may use a .org. You may use a .gov. But I don't really want to see that. I really want to see that you actually are jumping into the literature. But I do not really care to see, if possible, that you know how to use Google. That's not important to me. You may use a .edu as well, but .coms don't count. Okay? All right. Let's see. Content requirements. Let's go into visual aid requirements. Okay, so your visual aid requirements are as follows. Your PowerPoint slides, I want a minimum of 8, a maximum of 10. There's to be no clip art. Now, clip art means things you cut and paste. I do not want things you cut and paste. If I see that, that's going to just nullify the grade. So you need to go ahead and make your own graphics. On top of that, the slide, there needs to be no more than 15 words per slide. That means 15 words literally per slide. I want you to make a speech. I don't want you to do reading. Also, the slide must contain, the presentation needs to contain at least 1 statistical graph. At least 1. Again, I do not want to see any cutting and pasting of statistical graphs. I want you to make the data sets or make the graphs using the data that's been provided. And again, your presentation needs to contain a works cited slide. In addition to that, I also expect to see your outline to have a works cited slide. And I think you're going to have a works cited page, rather. And again, I think you'll see that within your annotated bibliographies that have been provided, at least with the YouTube URL for that. Okay, so now we have the topic revealed. The topic is going to be school violence. Now, the reason we're talking about school violence is because of what has happened primarily in South Carolina. We all know that a young woman was accosted, or basically she was the victim of police brutality in school by a SRO, or school resource officer. But as we talk about the notion of school violence, I want you to think about how to make the topic your own. Now, this is where it becomes kind of interesting. I don't expect everyone to have the same topic, but I do expect people to basically take the topic and make it their own. So you can think about a few things here. Let me give you some ideas, but you can't take these. I want you to just think about them. These are like brainstorms, or brainstorm starters, if you will. So let's think about how you could make the topic your own. If we're talking about school violence, we could talk about incidents of school violence. Okay. You could also talk about, let's say, school the militarization. No, I wouldn't say that. You could talk about ways to respond to school violence. And when we talk about that, you could think about the idea of, let's say, what are safety plans schools have in place. You could also think about school violence through this. You could talk about what happened, let's say, in Columbine or Sandy Hook. You could also talk about, if you will, hi Gary, bye Gary. You could also talk about, let me get that out of the way too. Oh, no, I don't need that right now. You could also think about, let's say, the notion, let's say, if not Sandy Hook, you could also talk about school violence through the notion of a case study. Particularly, again, that's why I use Sandy Hook as a case study. You could think about school violence through the lens, if you will, of comparative. You can compare school violence. Comparison. Contrast. Okay? So the idea here is you are to think about how you would give me a speech through either examples, comparison, contrast. Think about it as a case study. You could think about it as statistical sharing of information. But the idea of an informative speech, folks, is literally to share with me information that you have collected. Now, I don't want to see that you are taking a side, because this is not that type of a speech. What you will be doing, in a nutshell, folks, is literally giving me information. You're sharing information with me. You're letting the audience know about your information, and that you actually are somewhat knowledgeable about the topic that you plan to be conversant in. So again, that's why it's important that you take a look at the types of sources. The textbooks talks about this. These types of sources help to enhance your speaker credibility. So what I plan to do this week, I plan to have a hangout with you to discuss strategies and how you will go about accomplishing mastering the informative speech. So I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing from you all around that time. Again, please feel free to contact me. I'm going to be busy taking care of papers, speeches. But I plan to get back in contact with you, and again, allow you as much time as you need to go ahead and get that stuff into me, because again, I realize that I've been kind of slow on getting things back. Again, my primary concern is to make sure that every one of you have an excellent or a good academic experience. And again, I apologize for not being as responsive as I can, but again, I want to make sure that you're not penalized for that. Okay, so we will see you on Thursday for the hangout. I want to make sure that you all had an opportunity to for lack of a better term, to get ready for the speech topic. Start preparing yourselves. And I will make those links available to you, and I'll make them the deadlines modified, of course, in Blackboard. So until Thursday, we will see you then. Be well. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.